Good morning, namaste, hola, bonjour, and marapan. This is Namya Joshi, your host for the day. Welcome to the fourth episode of the podcast, Each One Teach 10, an amazing world of STEM, an inspiring venture where we will be discussing that STEM is part of every day for every kid. We all will learn together how to build a STEM culture. Teachers play an important role in the student's life after the parents. Today, I have a very special guest with me, Miss Becky, a 5th grade teacher at a K-5 aviation and aerospace magnet school, a stay-at-home parent, and a K-8 STEM lab teacher in Central Florida. It's my pleasure to have you here on my podcast. So, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm not actually teaching this school year because of the virus. It didn't feel like it was the right decision to be in the classroom. And so I found a lot of fun projects to work on instead. And I'm really enjoying that.
Wow, that's amazing. And we all are so curious to know more about you. So please tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm a progressive educator. I believe in children learning through hands-on experience. A lot of the things that I did in my classroom I intended, especially in my STEAM lab where I had a lot of freedom to do things the way I wanted, it involved them exploring things, problem solving, and a lot of times I would provide the same challenge to younger students as I did to older ones and would kind of compare the outcomes, and I would let them see each other's work, and that would sometimes inspire each of them to come up with different solutions. It was a lot of fun. So I'm very much into the hands-on learning. I love STEM. I've always loved STEM. And I was a physics major in college for about 2 years before I switched to education. I just absolutely love science and math and technology. So,
Wow, I'm really inspired and I have seen your tweets and your work about STEM. So I wanted to ask you that what does STEM mean to you?
I think a lot of people think about STEM as just meaning science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, but it's not necessarily just an acronym for different subjects. I think that it closely resembles how we learn naturally, combining multiple subjects together, because you often need more than one to do the other. And I actually prefer to call it STEAM in my classroom because I think the arts, especially with the way the technology has advanced, is so deeply integrated in STEM that I was quite surprised that a lot of the activities I came up with for my students were very heavily art focused, and they weren't expecting that either. They thought it was going to be just science. So I think students, they really need to have real world experiences to become active, conscientious global citizens as adults. And I think that STEM provides that opportunity of something that feels like a real world problem solving adventure.
Yes, ma'am, STEM and STEAM mean to learn naturally and also provide problems to students so that they can solve it and they can also become like good problem solvers after that. And that's a very motivational belief of yours. So, according to you, why is STEM important for education in the 21st century?
Well, I think the world is becoming more and more interconnected with technology. And I think children need to learn not only how to use the technology, but how to create what comes next. They're going to be the decision makers and problem solvers of tomorrow. And they're going to need strong 21st century skills involved, like including soft skills like communication and hard skills like coding. I really enjoyed listening to your guest, Ms. Bhupinder Gojia, when she was emphasizing these skills. And I think I would also like to bring emphasis to acknowledging the role of polymaths in history who advanced human civilization. People like Archimedes, Leonardo da Vinci, Nikola Tesla, they're people with a wide range of knowledge or understanding who apply it to deepen our knowledge and improve technology. And so these people, an older term for a polymath might be to call someone a Renaissance man or Renaissance woman. They're often systems thinkers. They they think about how something fits within a system rather than just focusing on specialization. Education systems tend to focus learners on just specialization, but systems thinking has become the way our world works now. And it helps us to make the greatest advancements. You can look at throughout our history and see examples of systems thinkers making these massive changes in who we are as a civilization. So sometimes they'll create new theories, fields of study, jobs, and industries. Um, they redefine society. Think about Steve Jobs, who combined technology with design, and he created technologies that were appealing to a broader variety of consumers. It totally transformed the way electronics are and software are made together today so that it's more focused on the user. Some like older listeners, they might remember a time when technology was not so user friendly or exciting to purchase, not so pretty, and it just merely served a function, making it less used since a smaller group of people really wanted to buy it. So now people have greater access to learn from that technology, and it's higher quality and it's designed to appeal to a wider audience. So as he has just completely transformed so that the technology we love today is such a huge impact from him, just this one person, because he combined these two fields that he really loved and mattered to him. So the modern world is becoming more about designing, creating, and problem solving with that systems mindset. And I think that STEM encompasses our most valuable tools to use that kind of thinking and build a prosperous future together.
I truly agree with you, Miss Becky. And even I'm leading a student led club in my school by the name You Can Even Learn. So I'm trying to create awareness that each ICT tool and application can be used in STEM learning. Now, as we've started incorporating technology in STEM, if you could please tell that what do you think is the role of technology in STEM?
Well, I think it's not required for STEM learning. I've seen many teachers who teach STEM without technology, and I actually struggled in my classroom to get enough technology to be able to do the things that I really wanted. But I really think in order to adequately prepare students for the future, it's essential. I think um, my problem with my classroom, I had to spend so much time fundraising. I brought in old computers that my husband's work decided they were going to get rid of. He works in information technology, and so we brought these extra old devices and set them up so that we could use them. I bought discounted devices, refurbished devices, and sometimes we were able to use the computer lab. And as soon as I got a few iPads in my class, I used them for students to be able to do research in groups. And we used augmented reality apps to reinforce concepts using these interactive models that were really exciting for the students. I wanted to evolve my lab over time into an innovation lab so that I could teach more cutting edge technology, like the Internet of Things design. I wanted to use Raspberry Pi devices for that. um, the application of using drones, virtual and augmented reality content use and creation to help students deepen and share their learning, blockchain technology, and so on. But the T in STEM does not just stand for coding. That technology is not just coding, it's so much more. And the future is going to become increasingly complex, and students need to be expert users and designers of technology to shape that future.
Yes, Miss Becky, technology is essential for teaching children. And like the way you told, you've been using drones and Raspberry Pis, 3D models. That's so amazing. And that is exactly the need of the hour. And I also believe that the children should be equipped with the four season STEM. And I would really love to know from you that when you teach in a normal class and in a STEM lab, is there any difference between teaching in the two eras?
Well, a STEM lab is usually designed around the user exploring and the student exploring and making sense of things on their own to build essential skills and self-confidence while also learning hard skills like how to use the technology that's available in that classroom. The teacher is a mentor to explorers who must be prepared to fail often and pick oneself up every time to persist, like the Japanese proverb, fall 7 times, stand up 8. In STEM, we call that failing fast. It's essential to learning how to discover and use one's agency, and it's why I love integrating video games into learning since they teach perseverance. I started playing games when I was about 4 years old, and so my students really enjoyed that. But many classrooms are very different, and they're designed around making the learning process easier for the teacher to manage, with highly structured routines and systems that assign identical work to all of the students. Helps them to build understanding to a point of mastery, but it's often hard for students to feel connected to the content and deeply invested in learning how to apply that. And it's especially difficult, for them because they're not really seeking that knowledge for themselves. It's almost like it's being delivered. Whereas in STEM, it's like they're searching for it themselves, and it feels a lot more authentic. I mean, this doesn't mean that we don't need both, but modern schools need much more multidisciplinary STEM at every grade level to deepen learning and give it that greater meaning and value to every student. Ultimately, it helps students to understand themselves better. Interpersonal skills are part of 21st century learning just as much as something like collaboration. So what goes in a STEM lab looks very different depending on the age of the students and the resources you have. But what truly drives it is student motivation and curiosity. And teachers have to design learning experiences around the students to unlock their greatest potential. That's what makes STEM so different from being in a normal classroom.
Yes, truly agree with what you said, that failure is just another step towards success. So, if you could tell that what kind of activities did you do in your classrooms to develop 21st century skills?
Well, it was a very different kind of experience. I started off teaching at the magnet school. We did a lot of flight and space themed project based learning. And as a STEM teacher at my last school, I taught kindergarten through 8th grade. And so my first half of the day was all kindergarten to 5th grade classes, and then the afternoon was middle school. And it looks very different, even if we did the same kind of projects or if we did like a challenge. I'll get into that more. But first, I was thinking, I think a big part of it was I kind of designed learning opportunities to I like to demystify how things work so that students can be more confident, to grow connection through shared experiences across grade levels, building awareness of each student's own interests so that they will understand themselves better, develop positive relationships with peers while they're problem solving. I taught coding concepts starting in kindergarten, and they were awesome. We did coding electronic components with Raspberry Pi starting in 3rd grade. I led elementary students to conduct science experiments too, and taught them how to design their own. Elementary, actually all students, kindergarten through 8th grade, did these school-wide challenges, like we did building the strongest bridge without any glue and no supports underneath to go across 2 desks, and they thought it was impossible. It was so fun to figure out, and so we spent about a week and a half doing this thing. They were fantastic, like failing, and then they'd say, wait a second, I think I have a breakthrough, and they get so excited and they keep trying, and eventually by the end of it they were pros. It was amazing. And we did so many different variations of bridges, and we did like the bridge using the least number of pieces, the bridge that held the most amount of weight. It was a lot of fun. We did exploring constructing objects with modular origami. That was one of my favorites. They did a lot of problem solving using the design thinking process, and that centers on deepening empathy for the end user that you're making the solution for. So that was a really good thing. These activities help to foster trust in each other and in themselves through growing natural intuition about STEM. And I think my favorite method was to provide students with a really nebulous prompt and then say, design a solution for this problem, and just let them define what they were going to make and how, and just mentor them along the way to ask the right questions and become better designers. So this brought out their creativity and divergent thinking so that really no projects were exactly alike. And that gave us really great opportunities to discuss how there are many ways to solve a problem and how wonderful it is that people think so differently. Middle school, that was a real adventure because I'd never taught that before. I introduced them to retro game development with K-8, which is like a little fantasy console. We did some gamification. I awarded them agency points for showing me that they had agency as a student. We did a little bit of game-based learning, and I was actually heavily influenced by Steve Isaacs in my Washburn's examples. I participated in a year-long professional development program with the Orlando Science Center, and they were amazing. They gave me access to materials and workshops, and I was able to teach my students, my middle school students, about modeling and simulation using these tools. So we used Ozobots to code a path for a space probe in a scale model of the solar system. And then one of them, we designed an artificial heart valve using virtual and augmented reality tech from Merge to build background knowledge first, and then using like classroom materials they had to purchase, and then they had to find which design would be the most efficient based off of the budget they had to buy the materials. We used tools like Tinkercad, 3D printing and modeling, Minecraft, and even Fortnite creative mode to build 3D models of compactly designed little tiny houses and spaceships, obstacle courses, and virtual Rube Goldberg machines. They had so much fun, especially in the spring when we were in lockdown. They just loved showing me what they could figure out on their own, how they could make the tool do what they wanted it to do. I invited them even to help me to refine the design of our class website because we didn't have a really good system to connect to our students with as a school. So I made this website, and I would say, okay, so what can we improve? Okay, let's, I'm screen sharing our class website. Okay, I'm making some edits and I'm showing them how I'm using this web editor. And then I would say, all right, I'm publishing. Now check it out and tell me what you think. And we would go back and forth. And that even was a design experience. I even showed them like how I use spreadsheets and forms and formulas in the spreadsheets to manage their projects. And I in the classroom, I tinkered with things and just showed them that I was also a learner. Involving them in a variety of experiences and inviting them to be a part of it was my proof that I believed in them to be problem solvers like I am to be.
That's really amazing. And I was thrilled hearing from you. Is there any favorite project that you did in the lab?
Well, I think my favorite one was the messiest. We did, we used STEM toys. Usually they're intended for little students. Like we had a ton of stuff available for the little kids, but the middle school students, when I started working there, didn't really have a lot of physical materials to work with. So I took all of these bins of stuff and I said, this is fair game, middle school. You can use this. So they took all of these toys and they built simple machines. And then I made like an interactive bulletin board with moving examples of simple machines. And then I showed you on Twitter that Archimedes screw I 3D printed. So that's when I built that. It was so exciting. So then I also did, the students I have so many pictures of them making a huge mess in my classroom. They designed Rube Goldberg machines in my classroom with all of this stuff, and they taped cardboard tubes to the wall. They had dominoes set up. They had like Lego man zip lines and lots of other things all over the place. All of my kindergarten through 8th grade students just loved to see it. They were so inspired and delighted to see these builds kind of grow in complexity over time, and just like to look at it and think and anticipate like how what's going to happen in each design. And then like, the older students were really proud that the little kids were seeing their work and getting excited about it. And then, like when they would see each other's work in class, then they would kind of be inspired and come up with their own ideas, like their own spin on what they see somebody else doing. I mean, it was it was the biggest mess ever, but it was so fun. I mean, it took days to clean up when it was all done. But but STEM is messy, and you know, the result's designed to be unclear at the start. You don't know what it's going to look like at the end yet, but it's so very rewarding to work through those things and like problem solve as you go. And that focus on what you're going to make it often doesn't even end up being what you were thinking at first. It's always better, and it leads to a lot of great solutions that we can learn from. So that was just so much fun, and I recommend that any STEM teacher, any regular classroom teacher even, just give it a try, because it is a lot of fun. It's messy, but it's fun, and you can use recycled stuff. You can use, like I use toys. I use a little bit of everything, and I think that is one of the most, like, that's one of the things I miss the most, was just those hands-on opportunities. But we even during the spring, we had a lot of great things that we did online. We did like virtual robotics that we found we could do, and we did lots of cool choice projects. So there's a lot you can do, even if you can't do hands-on things like that. But someday, if you can get your students doing hands-on things like a Rube Goldberg machine, I highly recommend it. It's so fun.
I would really love to be a student hearing so many activities, and they're so interesting. And I'm actually visualizing it, doing it practically in the lab. So our audience would like to know that where can they find you online?
Well, I'm very active on Twitter, and I go by Steam Cultivator. So STEAM Cultivator with an O. My name is Becky Lattof, and yeah, I'm there all the time. I'm also currently working on a big Minecraft project, so I'll probably be in there most of the time. But I'm having fun.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. And before we sign off, any message you want to give to our audience?
Oh, I would love it if people would just have fun exploring their interests and just exploring STEM for themselves, not to be afraid to try and fail and try again. That's what learning is all about, and that's why I love STEM.
Thank you so much, Miss Becky. There was so much to learn from the ideas that you shared. And like if we teach the students to learn by creating curiosity, it will help the person to continue learning. So thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. And I'm sure you all will agree that growth mindset and STEM are perfect match for today's classroom. Thank you everyone for listening to this podcast, and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, each one teach them.